Hi, everybody. Welcome to my podcast. Today, I wanted to talk about the damage from abuse. People are very neglectful around this, thinking that once it's finished, it's finished. But that's unfortunately not true. Once it's finished, it's just started. So, yes, the abuse is terrible, and going through the abuse, whether it's physical or sexual, being verbally sworn at or being disempowered by people screaming that you're no good or whatever they're doing. However, once that's finished, now the real damage sets in, because everything that happens to you becomes in your body, becomes part of who you are now. So before you might have felt really quite good about yourself, but now you feel really crap. And the damage is long term. I know that doesn't sound very positive, but I just want to be really honest with you. If you've been abused, there will be damage, and you're going to have to spend some time trying to clean it up. Otherwise, you're just going to carry it around with you all the time. When you've been physically hurt and abused, there will be obviously the damage from that. That's the damage that you will have. And if you were a child, you might actually still have some damage from broken bones or, things that were stretched too much in areas. And the impact of that could still be later on in life when you land up with a lot of pain in your left arm because your arm actually got broken several times. It can also be from the sexual abuse that now it's damaged all your sexual relationships because you just freeze up, or you find you just have sex with everybody because you think that's what you're supposed to do. Feelings around that. And then of course there's the verbal abuse, where you now are very sensitive to anything anyone says to you because you've been verbally abused and you've got no self-confidence and your self-esteem is just non-existent. There would also have been emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is where they shut you out emotionally, don't make you feel special, reject you, neglect you. Emotional neglect is very, very powerful, particularly for a child. But even within an adult relationship, if you've been with someone who's emotionally neglected you, that will be another form of abuse. And then you've got the mental and the psychological abuse. You can also have financial abuse too, which is a situation that you get into, particularly in partnerships, relationships, when you're growing up, where the partner has all the money and you don't have any of the money. And so you've never got any money and you don't have any power because you don't have any money. And they hold you almost to ransom. So all of these abuse things kind of go into one big group quite often. It's very rare to just have one. So if you've been physically abused, you will probably feel psychologically and mentally abused. And there was probably some verbal in that. And if you've been sexually abused, there will be some emotional abuse too, because of the way the person's treated you. You've not been made to feel special, are you? And then there might be some verbal abuse during it. There will be a lot of damage, and the damage will be in all different layers in you and in all different areas, and everyone's unique, so they'll all be carrying different baggage. The thing you need to do really is to accept that and realize that this has damaged you. That's what's interfering with your life, and until you start to face the fact that it's actually damaged you, you'll be walking around wondering why you can't do what everyone else can do and why you react so strongly to things. You just do because of the abuse. It just changes you. It can't help but change you. And the more abuse you've suffered, the more damage there is. And the more work you'll have to do to fix it. But you can fix it. I really believe you can fix it. Now, with the damage comes all the emotions that will come with that. So you'll have incredible fear sometimes and anxiety. You'll have terror, anger, rage, hate, resentment, bitterness. There will also be sadness, like a really deep sadness and sorrow. Our society just wants us to keep moving on. Just get over it, get on with it, heal from it, you'll be fine. Abuse doesn't really work like that. Abuse is like inside you, and the thing you have to do is get it out of you. And you can't move on until you get it out of you. And you can't band-aid it either, because it won't work. You can't drink it down, swallow it down, eat it down. None of those things will work. You can't even use medications to keep it down because it's actually in you. And that's the thing with abuse. Once it's happened to you and it's traumatized you, because that's what it really has done, it's traumatized you, It's going to be in you. So you're not going to be like an ordinary person. You're not going to be, there's like pre-abuse and post-abuse. And I'm just saying this to you not to be depressing or negative. I just want to be realistic about it, because it will help you to stop feeling like you're a failure because you just can't do all the things you're supposed to do, or you don't feel good. And it doesn't matter what you do, you don't feel good. And that's because you're still carrying it. So the biggest thing you can do to heal from abuse is to let it go. You have to let go of the abuse and find ways to let it go and release it. Release the feelings that you have, and then also release all the damage that's occurred from it, actual literal damage that has occurred from it, and a lot of trauma. Particularly if you were young, there would be a lot of trauma that you're still carrying. Be really nice to yourself. You're not like the person sitting next to you at work who hasn't been abused, who's had no damage. You're different. And yes, you can heal from this and you can get better, but don't kid yourself that you're the same as that person. You can't just put this abuse away and go, okay, it happened and I went to 2 counselling sessions and it's all fixed, because it won't be. Because while you still carry all those emotions around with you, and that's what we'll talk about in some of that podcasts coming up, while you carry them with you, they're holding you in that pattern of abuse. You're still back there frightened, you're still back there terrorized, you're still back there angry. You haven't actually moved on energetically and emotionally. So these are the places that you really need to go and look at getting rid of those emotions and processing what happened to you and accepting that you're different. And you're always going to have a few dents and dings. I've got dents and dings. I just accept I've got damage. I think I do okay. I get a meal on the table. I'm doing my podcast. I get to the shop. But I don't think I'm like everyone else, because I'm not. When the abuse is severe and goes on for decades, you'll also have much more damage than just one episode, perhaps. Therefore, start to think of it differently. Start accepting that you're damaged, and then we'll work towards fixing up the damage. But stop berating yourself. Stop being mad with yourself because you can't do things. For example, if you watch some movie and then there's some horrible scene in there and it triggers everything and you can't sleep all night, that's coming from the damage. You're not weak. You're not a person who can't cope. It's just triggering things. And that's the other thing to understand, that part of your damage will be the triggering. You'll have situations, you might go somewhere and there's someone at the party who looks like your abuser, and it just triggers everything, and you'll be fine until you get in the car. You can just hold it together, and then for the rest of the next few days it'll bring it up again. It all comes up again. That's what happens. And you can't stop the memories and the things from just coming up until you've released them. You can heal from this. You can get over it. You can be less damaged, and that's what we're working at, is getting rid of it, getting rid of it, getting rid of it. And then you will be able to cope better and better with your life. You're brave, you're courageous, you got through it. You are seemingly functioning like a normal person. That's what I'd say, even though I know I'm not really normal because of it. But I also think it taught me a lot of compassion to other people and empathy and understanding, and not to judge people, because, you never know what they've been through. You never know what abuse they've suffered that they haven't told anyone, or they don't tell many people, but they carry it. So it makes you, I think, more loving and kind to others, because buried underneath that big smile sometimes can be a lot of damage from abuse. This will also help you to relate to other people who've been abused, because you'll realise there's a lot of damage there, and that will give you help in your relationships with them, because even if you don't mention it, you will treat them in a way that takes into account the damage. And in that way, you'll find it'll help you. Often people who've abused too will seek to work in healing areas. They become doctors, nurses, counsellors, working with children, child protection. And I don't know if you've done that, but a lot of people go to those areas without even realising it, because there's some kind of healing for them to be doing, a kind of healing for other people. It sort of is what they needed, so they give it to other people, but it's what they actually needed. Keep tuned, and I think you'll find that you'll feel better with these podcasts because you'll feel like you're talking to someone who actually really does know. Because it can be that you're the lone one who's been abused and no one else will talk about either that they have or face it, or they haven't maybe. So you're the only ones. It's really hard actually being out here on our own, but we're not really, because I think they say something like 1 out of 4 people have suffered some kind of abuse, but some kind of abuse isn't the same as what I'd call terrible abuse. There's like a gradient, goes from 0 to 100, so it all depends where you are on that gradient. And if you know there's been a lot, you need to really be good to yourself and kind to yourself and patient. You need to be patient because this is going to take a while. I think the journey is forever. I hate to tell you that, but I don't think it ever ends. I think you deal with one bit and then another bit comes up. That's how it's been for me anyhow, and I deal with that part and then I think, oh, it's all done now, and then something will trigger something and off we go, and we're just going to have to go and do some work on that. But the way I see it is every time I deal with it and let it go, I heal a bit more and I come back to who I truly am before it all started, as I came in. And you might think that way too, that you're actually just coming back to who you truly were, and maybe your life will also be improving emotionally because you've done the work. So I'm sending you lots of love and healing and light and all those things, and I'm hoping that you can start to recognize your damage and then we'll work together at letting it go.